The palmas for seguirillas are not any weirder than any of the other palmas. What's weird about the seguirilla really is counting it. So I'm going to show you the palmas for seguirillas, but we're really going to talk for just a second about how do you count seguirillas, because it's so confusing. The bottom line is that all the methods of counting seguirillas are some sort of compromise. The most common one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the obvious compromise right there is that in no other kind of music do we count number beats, where some of these beats are much longer than the other ones. So to do 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 really makes no sense. However, this is what we do. I'm going to talk a little bit about the other ways of counting it, because I know that there's a lot of other methods out there, and some of them can feel like they make more sense. And maybe they do, but they're still less common. So if you wind up in Spain with a bunch of people playing flamenco doing a seguirilla, they're going to talk about beat 4. And if you don't understand this way of counting a seguirilla, you're going to be confused. One of the sort of two clever ways of counting a seguirilla that I've heard a lot is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which makes perfect sense. If you take a soleá and you take the two halves and you flip them, you get 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 3, 6. This is seguirilla pattern. Absolutely. But there's two problems. One is that who starts on 8? That's just crazy. Not any more crazy than having your beat 3 and 4 be longer than your beat 1 and 2, but it's a crazy that hasn't really been accepted by people who do flamenco, so I'm going to say avoid this. And the other problem is that do you start on 8 or do you start on 7? Because the trickiest part for most people, the seguirilla, is the turnaround. So in this case, it'd be 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if you count it that way and it really works for you and you can get away from the numbers and internalize, that's great. But I would not get too wed to these numbers because they're very confusing. The other method, which is another compromise, which I also would recommend you avoid unless you already really, if it really works for you, stick with it, obviously. But that's 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I mean, that just feels terrible to me. I can't even say those numbers. But 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, it's just naming the beats a different way. So what I really recommend, even though it's not logical, I'm admitting this, this is not really logical, but this is what works, is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and. That last and that I just ended on, that's what gets everyone. For some reason with the seguirilla, people get 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1. Right here, people get really caught up. And I think it's because we start on 1, but after the 5, which is the end of the compás, there's that and right before the first 1. So if we think of the compás as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1, because obviously there's space between the 5 and the 1. So for the palmas, I'm not going to give you anything more complicated than this. Get used to going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Seguirillas can be insanely slow, and at a certain point, it's so slow, especially with a cante, that it feels almost rubato. And at that point, I would recommend just don't do palmas, especially if no one else is doing palmas. It changes the feel. Tientos and seguirillas have this thing where if you do palmas, they feel very different than if you don't, because they can be played slightly rubato or they can be played, to a click. The palmas being the click in this case. But seguirilla can really be any speed. So it could be as slow as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or it could be really fast like a bulería. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to get used to any tempo, and you just need to learn to count them this way. Unfortunately, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4 4, and a 5. If you can sing any seguirilla material you have while you're doing the palmas, that's going to help you immensely. And this is true of any palmas pattern, really. But if we think of the basic compás of the seguirilla and the most common falseta, which is that escovilla, we would do ram, pam, pam, pa, tiki, tum, pam, pam, tam, tiki, tam, taka, tam, pa, taka, ta. We could do llamada. Pam, 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 taka, ta, taka, ta, tum, tam, tam, tum. Bum, 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 ba, da, ga, da. If we take that falseta, da, ba, 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 da, ba, da, ba, da, ba, da, bo, da, di, ba, da, ba, da, ba, da, ba, da, ba, da. This is proof that my voice doesn't have to be good for me to sing. The more you get into hearing the relationship between the music and the palmas patterns, the more useful the palmas patterns are going to be for you, and the stronger your compás is going to be overall. So spend time with this. I know it's more fun to play the guitar, but palmas actually become really fun once you get good at them. So do it.